Welcome to episode 404 of the Tilehurst podcast. A message error, really. You would normally get 404 if you were on a computer or a laptop, and it would say victory not found in our case. So, something along those lines anyway. Terrible day at the Stade de SCL, which left us feeling more like it was the Stade de Misery. Really bad performance, really bad result. Here to chew over that. It's not even chew the fat, chew the gristle, chew the
Gristle will be
bones.
about right. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a good analogy, actually.
Is Tampa Bay Rowdies ultra fan Ross Webber?
Indeed. Do you know? I'll give you a fun fact about the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Did you know Mark Lawrenson played for them way back in the day? Which is just a funny aside. Mark Lawrenson. Do you remember he used to be on Match of the Day way back? Oh, Liverpool. Yeah, quite grumpy, but yeah, he used to play for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. This whole league, the NASL, the North American Soccer League, it was madness in the I think it was the 80s or the 70s. I can't quite remember, but I know that a lot of big players played, and this is the second iteration of the Rowdies. But yeah, they're just a funny, storied team. So anyway, watch us on YouTube. Is the point of this, by the way?
Yeah, it's a good name for a team. It's a good name for a team. I've thrown in the towel, and like one of my favourite badges and technically second favourite team is Inter Milan, and their old badge was one of my favourites. This is like the new badge, and it's just a bit new. It's still
I know what you mean. I do know what you mean about some of the. I've actually had fun designing a crest recently. We're going to get onto Reading Football Club in a minute, everyone.
Crest.
I've had fun.
It's a badge.
A badge, a crest that I've given the game away again there. But like, I did realize actually when I was doing that, I really like that a lot of the German crests still have some of their like old school elements to them, whereas the Italian ones, a lot of the new fangled stuff is really, it's just a bit tacky. Like it all looks like a bit supermarket.
Do you know what? I'm actually pleased that we have a pretty good badge in Reading Football Club. Like, we've had a few over the years. Like when I started watching, we had like just the kind of like the, I don't know what I'm doing. The lines, the little
lines
set.
one. Yeah. I've got the lines one right here. For anyone watching on YouTube, there we go. There's the shield with the yellow and then the
shield.
Different yeah,
that's what I was looking for. Yeah, with the yellow, the teal, the royal blue, and the white. So that's one. And then we had the trees, which was cool. Yeah. I quite like our badge now. I think it's quite cool.
I think the good thing about our badge now is that it lets us put a little bit of red in our kit, which just like goes a long way to, I don't know, just like making the kits a little bit different. So this is how much we want to talk about Stockport and the return of Ollie Norwood to the Stade de Misery, as Ben said.
This whole game is definitely the hippo in the cupboard, if you like, for this pod. We don't really want to be talking about it, but yet here we are on Monday evening / lunchtime for Ross, chatting about it. So before we do that, massive thanks, huge thanks as always to Said Films, who continue to sponsor this pod and every pod we do. So thank you very much for that. We have to talk about it. That's what you guys are here for. That's what we're here for. So we're gonna get into, I think, an opportunity missed. If you listened to the pod or watched the pod last week, I think this is an opportunity missed. But we're gonna get into it right now after this short break. Alrighty, welcome back to episode 404 of the Tilehurst podcast. You join us in a recap that we don't really want to do. Being in the stadium was a horrible experience on Saturday. It really was. It was bitterly cold. And I'm saying that to someone who's just had 6 inches of snow literally fall onto him. Not him, but his area. Outside, not his body. That would be weird. But it was that cold that just gets right into you. And like by the time I stood up at the end of the game, or 5 minutes before the end, when I decided to call it quits, my knees were in like a right angle. They were just locked.
Yeah.
It's
the kind of like cold, like when you like have a shower afterwards, you go really red, like too red. Like in a way that's a bit odd. But anyway, not good cold. Sorry to hear that.
I was leaving the car park. I was trying to change gear because I believe in manual cars, automatic.
Right.
And my hands were like claws. They were like gnarled trees. I was like, so it's horrible game, horrible weather, horrible atmosphere, horrible performance. You're gonna talk us through. I say talk us through. You're gonna share with us why the goals went in the way that they did. We were 2-0 down, I think, within 12 minutes. We got back at 2-1. Really nice goal from Sam Smith, I have to say. It was a really well taken goal, and
Yeah, it is a good hit.
it goes to show how important he is. I think there was far too much emphasis on him having to do all the work up top with little to no support. I know we're going to talk about Lewis Wing being basically kicked out of the game, but there was nothing else around him really. And then Stockport, scored a third, and that was game, set, and match, really. It was very, very difficult watch, considering where we'd been in previous weeks, take out the Burnley game. What went wrong, Ross?
Yeah, I think so. Before this game, we talked about it being a back three setup, and whether like it's kind of the back three or the front two is going to be something that would hurt us more. And my sense from watching the game is that the front two is really what was hurting us. Because if you go and take a look at the average positions of Stockport throughout the game, you can actually see the number 2, who's the right-sided centre back in most, like on FotMob and SofaScore and all these places, he's listed as the right-sided centre back. He was pushed really far up on the right side, pretty close to who would be the right wing back. So kind of like we said, gumming up that channel on that side, but also kind of showing that they were in almost like a back four for a large portion of the game. Obviously, they made us try to create things, but by having those 2 center forwards up there, I think that Wing was having a lot of trouble, didn't get much time on the ball, basically ever. And I'm going to go through the goals in just a second, but in the third, you can kind of see this the most with the front 2 issues, whereby Dorset loses the ball. He looks inside to see if he can find Wing. The option's not there because Wing is marked by the one of those center forwards, and then he loses the ball to the other one. So you got issues right there with trying to progress the ball through the middle of the field, and it just not working. So yeah, I think for me the issues for Reading when there is a front 2 in the middle of the field, it really restricts the amount of time and space that Wing gets, and when Wing isn't creating things, there isn't always somebody else for Reading to do that. And in a game where Reading had 60-something% of possession, something like that, a lot of the ball, despite not playing particularly well, you would think that they would be able to get the ball to Lewis Wing more and through Lewis Wing more. He took only 71 touches all day, and made 2 key passes. So just shows you how limited his impact was. And I don't necessarily think that was due to his performance, just due to how things shaped up on the pitch. So, yeah, you can go through the goals if you like too, because there's more to complain about.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads to whinge about. I mean, look, you're right. We had 63% of the possession. We had 9 shots in total, only 1 on target, which obviously resulted in the goal itself. 18 shots in total for Stockport, 11 on target for them. And really, I think at half time, someone flashed up the stats at that point, saying the attacking stats, and we just weren't in the game at all. Yeah. The third goal, as you mentioned there, was symptomatic of the game itself. Even when we scored, we go back to 2-1, you knew that. I just felt that Stockport were going to get another one, and they did. Look, credit to them. We weren't good at all, but I thought Stockport were great. And sometimes you just have to go, look, there's teams that we play against in seasons that just have our number. They put 4 past us earlier on in the season, another 3.
I think the frustrating thing for me is that all of the goals look to be avoidable.
Yeah,
and like I say, with the third one, I do think there's some good plays in there, and I do think that by that point in the game, we've got a toe hold. I think Hunt has to know that we're in
trouble. Can you say a toe hold?
Toe hold, yeah. A toe hold in the game.
I've never heard that before in my life.
No, a foot hold? A toe hold?
Yeah.
Okay, a toe hold.
If you had a toe hold, what does that do?
Well, you could still spring up your toe. I've had toe hold before. Right, listeners, is it foot hold or toe hold?
Which toe are you picking? Yeah. Big toe?
The big toe, definitely. It's the most power in it, There's a lot of power in Lewis Wing's big toe. Anyway, less about that. What was I even saying now? You've totally put me off with toe chat.
We didn't get a toe hold.
Yeah, that's the point for me. We've got a toe hold in the game. I'm sticking with it. And that's the point for me where the manager has to look and see, hey, look, this isn't working with Wing, in that particular position. He's getting marked out of the game. And you're saying kicked out of the game too. Obviously, I haven't. It's more difficult for me to see that on the Y-Scout replays. But I just think there has to be a change there. I want to complain too about the set plays. Do you want to complain about that?
What, from a defensive point of view?
Yeah, from a defensive. you.
Go on,
Yeah.
do it. Just rip
This
them a
is
new one.
I hate this. I hate them. I not
You,
Reading.
to,
I
like,
do hate Reading
to
Football Club and love them, but still,
to your credit, you've said this all the way through the season.
I hate it.
This is
I hate.
this is
I
not a
don't
new
like
thing.
it.
Us conceding from set plays, you picked this up so many times before.
Yeah.
You know, you've said this throughout the season, and nothing's been done about it. Nothing's been sorted out.
Yeah, and like so. Look, there's okay. So the first two goals that Reading conceded that just put them in a hole, are both from set plays. In both of them, I think you're seeing a kind of zonal hybrid system going on with the marking. I've got no issue with that, to be honest. I think that there's merits to man marking and zonal marking systems, and I think that most teams are using a hybrid now. That's fine. But when the first one comes in, you can basically watch what's happening. There's 4 Reading players lined up in semi-useless positions, and then you've got 3 Reading players matched up, man versus man.
Semi-useless. That's brilliant.
Semi-useless.
That could be the title of the pod.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just think they're in useless spots, and I'm going to talk about this again in a minute. Like this is where the marking system needs to be adjusted. So you end up with 3v3 on the target players for Stockport, who are clearly guys that have been, chosen because they can win aerial duels. Meanwhile, we have Wing, Savage, and Rashisha there defending these duels. What? Like, and so then immediately there's a little handoff where Wing and Savage basically need to hand off their markers. Wing gets pushed by his marker and just lets him go and doesn't even pick up another marker. Savage lets the guy go behind him, who eventually scores the goal and doesn't turn around to watch him. So Kanu's got to step out of the whatever the back 4 system is and just can't get there in time. And it's basically a free header, which is ridiculous. And then the second one, I think this one's really bad from the coaching perspective. And this is where the set play stuff just has to change, whereby you've got Reading lining up and nearly everybody, so the free kick's coming from the right side or Stockport's right side. And nearly everyone on the Reading side is kind of further over towards that right side. And it's left us in like a sort of, they've got an overload of players at the back. I know a lot of these like lineups now during set plays look weird because coaches have got all kinds of funny ideas. But I just don't understand how you can think that it makes any sense to leave 4 big lads on, like a couple of like small, like the new right back who's come in like in the last 2 weeks or whatever. I don't understand how this makes any sense. And Norwood puts the ball over the top. And immediately 6 Reading players are out of the play. And there's nothing they can do about the ensuing header because they're so far away from where the action is happening. And just constantly, for almost a year now, we've left these huge holes on the back post through all of this marking, all of this zonal marking or whatever it is that we're doing. And it's often from going too close to the side that the free kick is coming from and leaving the back post exposed. Obviously, in this one, we saw kind of like mistakes within that those players who were picked to go and mark man versus man, and that was a near post situation. But just those 2 in particular drive me up the wall.
I'm just watching the first one back, and to be honest, the second one's worse.
Yeah, the second one's much worse. Yeah.
I know you're also going to talk about, but the second one is ridiculous. Like it's. I just need to watch that back because he's in an incredible amount of space. The ball comes in, right over the top. There's no Reading player within, I don't know.
2 or 3, yeah.
But a lot. It's a big space, right? And it's a great header. And he's beating Pereira really well with it. But it is just appalling, and you're right. And this kind of leads us on a little bit to, and I know it's not on the fullbacks, but, in that department at the moment, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Because we had a Brafer who was back on the bench, coming back from the game against Bern. And, Noel Hunt went with Rashisha at right back, Kanu at left back. I mean, what did you make of that decision? Dorset was obviously on the bench, came on at half-time for Kanu, which I think is quite telling. Really, he obviously that was clearly always going to be the plan, I guess. Dorset's going to be number 1 choice at that spot at the moment. Kelvin Brafer came on 77 minutes for Chem Campbell, so kind of like for like there in terms of an elevated position. But Michael Craig came on 60 for Rashisha. What, out of that pool of 3 or 4 players, do you anticipate that when we line up against Leyton Orient in a few days' time, Saturday, what do you anticipate the fullback situation being? Because I wasn't impressed with either of them that started, frankly.
Yeah, and you've been very fair on Rashisha, so I don't think that's kicking the player as he's just coming into the lineup. I liked Kanu too. The first after he came back from the red card, I thought he had a few games where he played okay, but now for me you've got to go back to Dorset and Craig. So Rashisha got involved in one aerial duel all game and failed to win it. There wasn't much better going on Kanu's side. So, and we know that Noah Hunt knows that the teams are playing over the top towards our fullbacks quite a lot at the moment. So I think you got to go back to the two that have been more secure for Reading in 2024. And for me, that's Craig and Dorset. But it'd be kind of interesting to see what that looks like, because I do think that when Craig was fit briefly, when Hunt was a manager, he was kind of being used in a pretty different way. And again, yesterday, a little bit of movement into the middle, but not nearly as much as there was under Sellers. So even if Craig is back in the lineup, which I think he should be personally, we might see him used in a pretty different way. But even then, I will say just quickly, Dorset made a mistake, obviously, in that third goal as well. So even bringing Dorset on, we did have some issues there. I think that was partially down to the tactics from Stockport at that time, though. And again, mistakes from the player side. It's a mix of, tactically not being quite there, and then, mistakes happening. Dorset loses the ball. Bindon and Dorset both go for the same player, and that leaves Dean 2v1. So in that goal, Dean is the last person to get near a player for Reading, and he fails to get to the guy who slides and kicks it across for the assist. Yeah. But in that whole thing, Dean's the player I'm least mad at, because he holds, the space between two players, tries to off the pass, and then is left 2v1 at the back by himself. So it's like, it's tough at that point.
There was, we can talk about Harley Dean, and it would make a great Sky Atlantic series in terms of his redemption arc from, villain to potentially hero.
The Dean of Reading.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought he was right. He certainly defensively, he was the one who was being most aggressive in that fort. There were times when I thought he was going to absolutely lather Lewis Wing in terms of the way that he was playing or not playing. He was having a pop at.
I think,
yeah, of course.
Because who else had the authority before Dean to actually do that? Like maybe Pereira, because goalkeepers are mad and they yell at everyone. But
they're just angry people.
They're just angry people. But my favorite thing of every international tournament is the discussions between Pickford and Maguire and the way in which they shouted at each other. But anyway, yeah.
But, I thought it was good. He got his blocks off. As I said, he was very, very aggressive positionally. He was okay. He didn't look like he's carrying any sort of ring rust. And, he looked like a man who's absolutely going to relish the next 6 weeks of playing, to be honest, because Mbenge's not coming back anytime soon. We're led to believe it's 6 weeks, 5 now, if you count last weekend as a starting point of that. So I thought he was really good. There was a point where he was having a whinge or a fairly heated conversation with Nigel Gibbs on a touchline. I don't know quite what that was about, whether that was positioning or something else. I'm not sure, but he was okay. I didn't think Bindon was great. I thought there were other players. I thought Savage was okay on Saturday. Obviously knocked in the free kick for the goal. I thought Sam Smith was very good. And that sounds bizarre, even though we lost, but the amount of work that he got through and had to get through. And again, I thought having Garcia in that kind of pushed up position there on the, what was he, left-hand side? I liked him in that role. I really do, and I think he's got a lot of potential. There was a point when he kind of, all sort of a little bit of handbags really, and towards the SJM Club 1871 corner, and he was getting quite feisty. He was getting pushed around by the Stockport players, and there was a little bit of aggression there, which I think has been missing from his game overall. So, we can sit here and go, yeah, it was a disaster and it was a missed opportunity and all this kind of stuff. But there were some bright spots in the game. Smith's goal was very good. I mean, from your point of view, Ross, where do we go from here now in terms of, is it now a question of going hell for leather to try and get the player spot back? Is it a situation where it is quite a big opportunity missed in terms of being able to live with a team closest to us at that point? And what do we do? Where do we go from here?
I would agree that it's an opportunity missed. I agreed with you last week when we were talking about how this is an exciting game to be in for Reading, competing for the playoffs and those kinds of things. So I think they have to keep going. I do think that there need to be some changes when we are playing against a front two, like I was saying, because I just don't think that the current tactic set works particularly against it. I was just taking a look at Binden's numbers from the game, just because, like I said, Wing was pretty far down, and Binden's got over 100 touches, which I guess that's where the ball was. And I guess him not being able to play wing into wing is shown by the fact that he tried to go long 11 times in the game, which is quite a lot, more than average. So, just kind of interesting. I do think that there's an issue. I wanted to talk about this. So I guess now's a good time. I do think Reading have an issue with playing from behind. So I'll ask you a question.
I love a question. Go on.
Yeah. And it's a game state question. That's my new weird stats phrase of the day.
As opposed to toe hold?
Yeah. Toe hold's enough. Toe hold's just whatever's going on.
Never heard of it. All I'm thinking now is toad in the hole, which is a delicious dish.
I do like toad in the hole. Anyway, how many points do you think we've won from losing position this season?
Okay, so we're losing in the game and we end up getting points.
Yeah, and Reading have 41 points this season.
Couldn't really be any simpler, could it?
So with Reading behind, how many points of those 41 do you think they've won? I
think 5.
5, okay, that's a pretty good guess. They've won 6 points this season. They've got 1 win against Huddersfield, and then 3 draws, 8 losses from losing positions. When you put yourself 2-0 down, 10 minutes into a game, it's going to be hard to get back, no matter what. And Reading aren't the highest scoring team ever. They do have some good firepower, but they're not the highest scoring team. They don't have huge XG numbers or anything like that. 35 of those 41 points won from games where they never got into losing conditions. So it just shows how important it is.
That's not a major issue, is it? I guess that's fairly symptomatic of the way the game's played out, surely. I mean,
it depends on when those. I think there's more. There's definitely context you can add around it, right? It depends on when those game states are happening and how long they're there for. So, like for instance, the other loss to Stockport is a really good example of this, right? We're playing from 3-1 down for 45 minutes of the game. That's an issue. The game against Bolton is a good example. We're playing from 4-1, 3. I don't even know. We were down for large portions of the game. And I remember talking with you that day about how much does it matter that we played well while we were 4-1 down or something like that. So yeah, I think it's just, I do think it's symptomatic of being in a losing state, but I think that Reading are often in games in a losing state early on and they don't then necessarily come back. That can often set the tone for the game. But you can't give away early goals. If that is the case, you can't give away early goals with set play mistakes. So
well, whichever way.
About this. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we're going to move on. I was going to wrap it up by saying that puts us at 7th in the table, drop out for the first time in a long time. We still got a game in hand over Stockport and Barnsley. Stockport on 41 and Barnsley on 42 points. We are on 41. We go to Leyton Orient, would you believe, on Saturday, who are in 8th on 38. So there is still a lot to play for. There's still a lot of football to go with, and I think certainly the away games on paper and league position get slightly easier. The home games get a little bit more tricky. I think we've got Bolton to come, still got Wrexham to play, haven't we? So there's some teams there. Birmingham, we've still got to play at home. Wickham, we've still got to play at home as well. So it doesn't get easier at home, but certainly away from home there are kind of green shoots that potentially we can hold on to. Imagine that. Imagine if somehow second half of the season our away form escalated and our home form dropped. It would be so Reading.
It would, yeah. I would agree.
But I think the concern for me really is that the goal difference is for Barnsley is exactly the same on +4 as well. But when you look at Stockport, Huddersfield, Wrexham, and then going up the table, Wickham and Birmingham, their goal difference is huge. If it comes down to that, which I sincerely hope it doesn't, we might be in a bit of a pickle. For context, Leyton Orient are +10. So,
And pretty much the form team in the division, aren't they? So a nice, easy game for us to pick ourselves up with in the next one.
Exactly. That's worth an extra point itself, those goal difference. So it becomes a little bit trickier in that respect. But hopefully it won't come down to that, and we can pick up something at least on Saturday. So we'll see how we get on. Big game. We'll kind of preview that in the preview, quite literally, at the end of the pod. We're going to head to the mailbag. Got a few little bits and pieces to talk about there. So going to have a short break, and we will be back in a jiffy. Welcome back to episode 404 of the Tilehurst podcast. Joining myself, Ben Thomas, and co-host Ross Webber in Maine, USA. We're going to get into the mailbag, or listeners' corner, as I like to call it. I watched John Wick for the first time ever last night.
Never seen John Wick before?
Never seen John Wick. Have you seen John Wick?
Yeah. I haven't seen all of them because, I like the first one a lot. And then I watched the second one. I was like, yeah, this is also good, but I get it. The man in suit fight. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the opening bit generally shocked me and made me feel very sad. I won't spoil it for everyone, particularly if you're a pet lover, but it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Yeah. And from then, I actually really enjoyed it. So I can't wait to watch John Wick 2. But my question is, if we were going to do an action film around Reading.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't know why we do that, but whatever. Which Reading player for you would be the starring action hero?
Amadou Mbengue doing a, do you know the Vin Diesel Triple X movie?
Yeah, I do, sadly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the vibe I want. I want Amadou Mbengue in a No Fear shirt and, Oakley sunglasses and all that kind of stuff, kind of having a radical experience, from an action movie perspective.
I feel like Chem Campbell might be quite good.
Yeah, he's got the Chem, Harvey,
looks, isn't he?
Sam Smith. Yeah, they got the action movie look down for sure. Yeah, I would say. Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of movie. Are you trying to steal the club out from under Die Young? Is it a heist? In which case, I don't know. You need a more cerebral lad for a heist movie. Maybe Savage for that. Yeah,
maybe. I wonder who the cleverest player at the club is.
That's a good question, actually. I don't want.
Binden's probably quite clever, isn't it?
I think Binden's probably quite smart. But that said, he spent his entire life, it seems, around sport. So, how much time has he spent in the classroom? That's the question. Did we get questions today?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you're right though. It's a good question.
I try. I do come up with them occasionally. There's at least one every 2 pods.
Right.
3 pods, whatever.
God.
Andy Taylor always lets me know what the lager situation is like in the Dolan. He said, not a bad pint today. Looking forward to the game.
Did you hear? I don't think I brought it up again last week, so I'm going to bring it up again now because it made me laugh. When Greg was telling us about the Fatberg under 1871, that proper made me laugh. I had a good giggle about that one. So I do enjoy hearing the stadium updates because I don't know, hearing about the actual building that the games happen in sometimes makes me feel more connected.
Oh, it's trash. It's really bad at them. It's
really, hearing about the Fatberg, it gave me a good laugh.
Do you know one thing I noticed? So where I park the car, I kind of park in the car park directly outside the mega shop and my gate, basically. And you have the arrows that tell you the direction of travel.
Sure,
whatever. It's horrendous. It's all cracked. It's all bubbled. It's just a mess, basically. Just an absolute. It's little things like that. It's really the stadium itself is really, really bad, and the Fatberg is. I just had images of it having eyes and a mouth.
It's
I'm going to smell
come out of 1871 and
look, I'm going to stick you out so you don't come back, sort of thing. But it's stuff like that. You just think, just get it sorted.
I feel for the club though, because I think the staff know, they must know, but they might not have they probably almost certainly don't have the funds or the personnel to deal with it. So I remember the one cleaner debacle when we were talking to Sarah.
But people would do it. People would, if they said to the fans, "Look, do you know what? Come and do some volunteer work." People would do it because people don't want to watch football in a stadium that's just got basic problems with it. For years and years and years, in the toilet I use, you put the tap on. Not no, I don't mean that. Like, but like the
Yeah, it's like, where's
one
this guy?
area, like, do you
Yeah,
know? And you put a
sure.
tap on, and it just explodes.
Mm.
Just explodes all over you. And you're like, I don't want that. I don't want
Yeah,
that to happen.
I don't want that. Same feeling about the fatberg. I don't
Yeah,
want that.
yeah, exactly. You don't want
Oh,
to pay like 25 quid to sit on a fatberg.
no.
Do you know what I mean? Doesn't work. So
It's still
yeah,
funny.
it is funny. It is funny.
When we get promoted, we should let the fatberg out onto the field and
Yeah,
dye it blue and white, and that'll be
just let
great.
it slither out. Awful,
Yeah.
awful. Anyway, so
Can we play
Andy,
it on the wing? Because it might actually be able to retain possession better than some of our
yeah, exactly.
All
But
right.
it's stuff like that. You just think, how is this happening to a club like ours?
Yeah, I
I
know
just
it.
don't
It
understand.
sucks. Yeah, but I think it sucks for the staff as well because I think they know and they want to be able to do something and they just don't have the money or the personnel or
Kill the
whatever. Like
fatberg.
just
Kill
flat
it.
overall.
Get your
No,
pitchforks.
get me off the fatberg because I just every time I think about it, I just die laughing. Anyway,
Where's it come from? How is that?
years of like stuff. It'll be burger grease and well, the Berkshire bowls, so panini grease, but yeah.
Fatberg. Anyway, so Andy, going back to Andy, this all started with you saying it was an all right pint, Andy. Tactically,
Yeah, sorry, Andy.
we're playing inexperienced players at fullback. Normally, they wouldn't get a look in. We have players coming back and hopefully will improve again, but we were marked out of the game by a well-drilled Stockport side. Off the ball, they were moving better. Do you agree with the fact that in a normal situation, those players currently starting at fullback, i.e. Kanu and Rashisha on Saturday, do you agree they wouldn't get a look in?
So it's tough because it sounds harsh, right? I think they'd struggle, and we've talked about like we've kind of because of the emergence of some players, we've kind of talked about other transfer goals if we could ever make transfers. But I do still think that if Reading had been able to pick up a decent fullback, especially on the left side in the last few years, it would have made the team a lot better because there have been a lot of times when I think what Andy said there's bang on. By the way, tactically inexperienced is part of the issue. So I think a lot of these guys are very talented and they've got potential futures in the game. But we get beat by simple balls, balls into the seam in between the left side, the left-sided centre back and the left back, for instance, and the player just snakes around the back, and immediately the fullback's been taken out of the game. Yeah. That's the kind of ball that a player who's had even 5 seasons of 30 games a year. They just have a sense of how to deal with that, and they have a sense of that's a pretty common ball that will be played, so they need to be thinking about that and how compact they are. So, yeah, I completely agree. I do think the injuries in the last few months have kind of hampered Hunt's ability to really do what he wants with the fullbacks. So I think he does have plans for the fullbacks. I think that's somewhere we've seen things differ a little bit from Sellers. But yeah, I agree that some of the players that we've had there, and this includes Garcia, by the way, who I think is a really decent player, and I hope stays with us for a little while. They've had issues just understanding some of the basic runs that wide forwards will be making and cutting those out.
I think it's quite telling, when Hunt was talking the week about the injury situation and Yeardon came up again. And I think given that his contract is up this summer, I would be very surprised if we see him again in a Reading shirt on the pitch.
It's possible,
I don't know how close he is. But yeah, of course it will. It's the end of an era, but there's no way at the moment that he is going to get another contract with the club.
Yeah. It felt like Kelvin disappeared for ages on his injury, break, and obviously came back at the weekend, which is great. But it feels like Yeardom is, just nowhere near, which is, I thought maybe around the same time that Braither was going to come back, we'd see him. And it would be really sad for me if that is how, Yeardom's career at Reading, or his contract petered out, because...
And he's another right back that splits opinions. We've had this with Chris Gunter all the way through. Andy Griffin was another example of some people think he was great, some people think he was a liability.
Just find a footballer with grey hair weird. Just not about it. A footballer with grey hair, a bit odd, It's a young man's game. I always thought
Griffin was pretty solid, personally. I thought he was a good player, but,
Yeah, no, he can be as good at football as he likes, but he's grey-haired, and I don't understand that on the football field. You're a young man. Just dye it. If it's grey, Rogaine it.
I don't know if he got another club when he left us. I don't know if he ended up ransom. Anyway, whatever. But the point is that right backs generally have been an issue for us in terms of being crowd favourites in inverted commas and being what people expect a right back to be. I think it's difficult because obviously we've had Graham Murty, who is probably top of most people's right back lists for Reading. We've had some good ones over the years, and I think it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't say if, but when Yiadom leaves the club in the summer, where he sits on that kind of Mount Rushmore of right backs, really. If he even gets there, I don't know, not sure. Andy goes on to say, pie selection, chicken balti all day long. Any other choice is wrong. Context for this is that I was so cold on Saturday that I went down to the concourse and literally right after half time to let the rush go. And I basically had all the hot dogs are gone, which is a shame because the hot dogs this season are pretty good.
You did say you liked hot dogs when we were in the bar.
They're really good. Pretty good value as well. Really, really good.
We spoke about the hot dogs a lot, guys. Anyway, carry on.
I can only be me.
Hey, if it's a good hot dog, I mean, I would talk about it too. Like you get a good Frankfurter. Let's go.
Yeah, it's more about the bun as well. The bun's like a brioche style bun, and it's always quite soft and sweet. It's good. They're worth
I'm really
doing.
sorry because that was interesting, and you're about to talk about Reading Football Club, which is what this podcast is about. But just briefly, up here in Maine, we have something called red snappers. Not the fish. They are basically hot dogs that are red casing around them, and they taste a little bit different from regular hot dogs. It's still a very processed flavor, but it's just a bit odd.
That's a Savoy, Ross.
Yeah, no. And then it you bite into it and it has a crunch. Like the outside has a crunch. Yeah. So anyway, you're talking about hot dogs. I just suddenly had to mention
that. Crunchy Savoy. What's the crunch there?
A crunchy hot dog. It's very odd. So yeah, that's why it's called snappers, because they snap. So yeah, we have weird hot dogs in Maine that anyone I know who is not from here, which there's a lot of transplants up here in Maine, they don't go anywhere near them. The Mainers love them. So yeah, very funny.
I dread to think what ingredients make it snap.
I don't want to think about that either. Yeah, because you know what sausages are normally made out of in terms of their casing. But yeah, what were you actually talking about before I started talking about?
What was the point? So I went down and I was like, look, I need something to eat. I didn't say that to them because that'd be weird. Because obviously,
chicken balti pie, listeners.
Right, so they had chicken balti pie, they had a cheese and onion pasty, they had, I don't know what the other one was, but basically they had everything available in the little, the oven
the concourse, whatever it is. Yeah. The warm up.
But they had no hot dogs. So what would you do, and what would you have got in that situation? What would you have had?
I agree with Andy. It's a chicken balti pie. I like those a lot. That's actually something I miss over here. Yeah.
See, I panicked and I went for the cheese and onion pasty.
Oh no! You always go. Yeah, I'm sure it was all right, but you always go for the thing when you're going to eat food like that. You just always go for the thing with a little bit of meat in it because it's like that'll carry me through. But also, chicken balti pie is mint. I love that.
Yeah, but sometimes it's too liquid and it would have been too hot.
Okay.
But basically, this pasty was all right because it wasn't too heavy on the onion. It was quite nice. The cheese was pretty much melted all the way through it.
Okay.
But I just didn't. I remember sat there thinking, do I just put this down my shirt for a bit, or do I eat it? Because I was that cold. Honestly, it was disgusting up there. It was so horrible. But anyway, I ate it. It was very nice.
So if anyone saw you at the weekend, then they got a cheese and oniony whiff. That's not Ben. It's not just his must or anything like that.
Exactly.
That is what pasty was. Yeah.
But Andy's on chicken balti, so maybe that'll be the next. I don't tend to eat at football because I always think it's weird that people eat at half time because you wouldn't normally eat at 3:45.
Yeah, I don't normally eat at that time. I eat before and after.
It's just eating because it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I do okay, actually, no, wait, tell a lie. If I arrive early for a game, which I normally do these days because, I don't get to be there that often, I will eat fish and chips beforehand because there's something, if you don't live in the UK, there's something about getting fish and chips out of a van with a little silly, wooden fork or whatever that's just kind of great. And I actually, some of the fish and chips fans they've had at the Medeski over the years have been not bad.
Yeah, they've been all right, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know what the situation is outside the ground these days with food. I saw someone against Burnley. Obviously, it's Sir John stand. They were coming back at half time with like a plate of donuts with chocolate sauce.
Interesting. Okay.
So maybe that's maybe if that's you do that.
Yeah. There we go.
Anyway, over on Blue Sky, because we're on Blue Sky. Ross is exclusively on Blue Sky. Gav, my thoughts are largely as per the below thread. So he put a thread up. I'll read that in a minute. Some fans in the stands need to lay off players like Carney when he's having a tough day and an unsettled back four out of position against tough opposition, and he's basically still a novice. He's not even our first choice centre back at right back. And his thread was Fisher hardly played any games outside the academy, not a fullback. Dean been frozen out for about 18 months. Bindon wondering whether he's staying or going. Carney hardly played any games outside the academy, not a fullback. What is your opinion on the state of play defensively at the moment?
So I think there's a few things going on, and you can hear just in that, by the way, that the personnel is different from what it has been, for what it was for the start of the season under Sellers, and we've talked about how the injuries this season have been worse than they were last year. We've been unlucky, or maybe we were lucky, the year before, however you want to look at it. But yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, actually. Like if you want to think about the context with that, and I am surprised, by the way, that it's January 20th. Obviously, I'm not on Twitter anymore, so I'm not maybe seeing as many rumors and things like that as you are, Ben. I don't know, but I haven't really seen that many rumors. I know the Harvey Nibbs one came around, and right before January, there were a bunch of rumors, right? But now we're 20 days in, and we haven't seen a whole lot. But yeah, it probably is bugging, Tyler Bindon, whether he's staying or going right now. So I do think that even though he did make a mistake in the third goal, that bringing Dorset back will be good for it. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that point is pretty correct, to be honest. And while the, outside of the wingers, although even that's kind of solidified in recent weeks, while the midfield and the forward line have been pretty solid, there has been a lot of chopping and changing in the back line in the last few weeks. So yeah, I'm not surprised that there would be some issues. And there were some issues with the defense, conceding a lot of chances or a lot of shots before, this particular run with this defense. So yeah, I think there are some tactical issues to solve as well as personnel issues.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens against Leyton Orient, and we're going to talk about that now in the preview to kind of wrap up this one. As always, if you've got anything to say, it's always difficult after a loss because people aren't really interested. People just want to forget it and move on. We tend to get more engagement when we've won. I think we'll get even more engagement when all the off-field stuff is done, and that continues to rumble on. Before we move on to the preview, massive well done and congratulations to Reading women. They won 2-1, pick up the first points of the season against Selsey yesterday. 2-1 win, which is fantastic for them, fantastic for morale. I think it's as Ollie said the other week when we were talking about kind of the 2024 review and kind of going through the awards. Ollie brought up the women, and it's been incredibly difficult to get information out of the club around the women. Like they've significantly reduced the coverage that they give. Effectively dropping down to fifth tier, which is appalling, really. But that is where they are, and if they can get through this season sort of intact as a unit, look for next season and try and build on that and try and get back up the leagues. But incredibly difficult for those people that go and watch the women on a regular basis, week in, week out, sort of home and away. Incredibly difficult for the players. Yeah.
So I was just going to say it's worth shouting out the work Peter Matthews obviously does for the
incredible
covering the women's team. So yeah, check that out if you are interested and you're not already doing so. Yeah,
but I mean, Peter does a great job with the match reports. Any other articles he does as well around the women. He's been on the pod a couple of times to talk about the women. Probably still another one of those.
Coming soon, actually. Yeah, that was on my mind, actually. Yeah, so good reminder.
Good win as well. So well done, well done to the team and the staff behind it, and what is proving to be a very, very difficult season at our level. So, well done to everyone connected.
Oh, hey, and talking about what we were saying earlier, they came from behind.
Exactly.
And it was their first win of the season. You're right there. So they came from behind. So good for the ladies doing what the boys cannot this year.
Exactly. We are going to talk about Leyton Orient. They are up next in our journey in this season. We're going to do that now. I'm going to stop waffling and have a short break and get into the final part of episode 404. Everybody, welcome back to the final part of the pod this week. Preview the trip to Brisbane Road. Love that. That's a really nice
good
stadium
name.
Place name.
So what it has to do with Brisbane, still here for it. That's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean they are on literally Brisbane Road. Nice little ground, Leyton Orient. Not a hideous part of the world, to be honest. We had physically, and they've done incredibly well. They draw Man City in the cup. They play them pretty soon, next week after, potentially. Don't know.
Yeah,
no, 8th of Feb. Blimey, I thought it was the end of January, but it's not. 8th of Feb. It's not called Brisbane Road anymore.
Oh,
stupid, Ben.
We can still call it Brisbane Road.
The Gahan Group Stadium, the Gahan Group, whatever.
I don't care. Well, whatever.
Anyway, decent club, having another pretty good season under Richie Wellens. Recent
turned around, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a personal friend of Noel Hunt, he said that on the pod previous week when he came on. Done a very, very good job there in terms of results and generally, getting them playing. Recent results, they beat, let's go the latest game first. So they drew with Peterborough away. Again, not a bad result at all. Beat Derby County in the FA Cup third round, 6-5 on penalties. They beat Shrewsbury at home. They won away to Bristol Rovers 3-2. They beat Cambridge 2-0. Do you want me to go on? They beat
it's actually kind of interesting. I'm like listening. Keep going.
They beat Barnsley away 4-0 just before Christmas.
That one's pretty impressive.
They drew 0-0, bizarrely, at home to Burton.
All right, listeners, the reason I'm making him do this is because the trend that I'm noticing is that Leyton Orient are the form team in the division. They've had a lot of good results recently, but a lot of these wins are against some of the weaker teams, some of the teams that we've saying, we've got more games against in the back half of the season. And, hopefully we can have a good back half of the season. So yeah, that's just, that is kind of interesting. Apparently their manager, Richie, like we've spoken about, he's stopped watching the games on the sidelines and he's moved up into the director's box in the same way that analysts, often do, or that the managers, if they get on the sidelines. So yeah, just kind of a funny little thing that's coincided with this run for them.
Well, you have to go back to the 26th of November, the last time they lost in all competitions.
Something like that.
Around. That was 2-0 at home to Huddersfield. So yeah, I mean that's nearly 2 months they haven't lost a game across all competitions. That's impressive. That's really, really impressive. Good players, fairly underrated players in their team as well. What do you make of Leyton Orient? Because there are a lot of teams punching above in this league. Some might say us. They might look at us and say we're punching above, but those results themselves are a really nice selection of results that will make their fans incredibly happy. What's the best case scenario for us in this game?
Oh, I mean, I obviously you want to think that. I think for us, and Noel's kind of talked about it before, and I think that it is something that he wants to install in this team is trying to stay in games more, especially away from home, and not just, playing front foot football all the time and trying to do, everything what we want to do in possession, from a risk perspective all the time. I think that, as we talked about throughout this podcast, Reading just aren't very good in a losing game state. And when they have to have the ball and go and attack, rather than being able to attack, in transition and counter attack. So I think that Reading need to try and stay in this game for as long as possible. Obviously, that's easier if they can take a lead. And Kelvin is back this weekend. I'm going to hope that he's going to start. So I think that will make a difference. Obviously, Chem Campbell has kind of nailed that right wing spot. If Kelvin can come back and be the obvious best option for the left wing spot again, that'll be a huge help. So look, away wins, we've gotten better. throughout 2024 with the away performances, and we might come away with something. An away win could be tricky though, against how they're playing right now, and I think a draw would be fine. Not allowing them to close that 3-point gap between us and them, I think is going to be important for the playoff race. So yeah, that's kind of what I think for Leyton Orient.
They're averaging 1.79 points per game at the moment, which is pretty impressive. Charlie Kelman, star man, 11 goals this season. He's one of yours actually. I mean, he's an American under-20 player. So
he is.
Yeah, he's seven, and then Dan Eggy as well, but he appearingly or seemingly is injured. Darren Pratley, Ross, is still playing for. Well, he's still playing football. He was in the lineup on Saturday for Leyton Orient. Okay. Some all right players, some really really good players. They've got fullbacks. They've got very mobile fullbacks. Pretty solid goalkeeper in Josh Keeley as well. So. This is not going to be an easy game for us, on Saturday. And we talked a lot about the defence this pod. What, apart from the obvious, what have we got to do to be able to get out of there with something from the game?
I think we got to find a way to progress the ball out of defence when Lewis Wing isn't an option. Because I think that most managers that have a tactical pulse now are going to see that Reading have trouble getting the ball to Wing, when he is surrounded by two forwards. And you can always adjust your out-of-possession structure. A lot of teams do like a 4-4-2 kind of thing out of possession, even when they're playing 4-3-3 in possession. You can adjust your structure to kind of give yourself advantages in certain areas of the pitch. And Dean has been good. We talked about this redemption arc. It's fun. It's great. Love it. But the thing that he doesn't do that Mbenge did do was progress the ball with his legs. And that's always a really important option. I know I'm back to legs, but think about the amount of times that you saw Mbenge go from the outside of the penalty box to the halfway line, right? I know you're still laughing about legs. Just stay with me.
Was that in a report you said that?
I said he ran, yeah.
Was it a match report? Or was it the ratings?
Player ratings. Yeah, I don't write match report. That seems like a lot of writing. But yeah. So anyway, I think the last time you saw Harley Dean run with the ball from
with his
penalty box to the halfway line with his legs, I would say it doesn't happen super often. So yeah, I think that's one thing that Reading really needs to work out. Maybe that happens with Craig back in the team, if they can allow him to kind of come a bit more inverted and maybe get into the spaces that Elliott was getting into earlier in the season, that allow him to progress the ball through a different player than Lewis Wing. Because if we don't have Mbenge there, we do miss out on something. So yeah, that's something I'm going to be looking for. I don't know exactly what the solution is. I'm not the manager of Reading Football Club, but I think that they need to find a way to progress the ball out of defense.
Do you think we will get to Saturday without having sold a player?
Ooh, that's I'll just say yes, because the players that are most likely to go are the players that I like the most. So I'm just going to say sure. We'll get to Saturday and we won't have sold a player.
Look, I mean, we get to Saturday and what's that? 25th, 26th.
Yeah, it'll be.
So we've only got 5 or 6 days left. And then
right, which and you would think, like obviously there's always bids that come in late and things like that. But if I'm a player thinking about where my next move is going to be, I want a little bit more time to think it through. That like a few days or a few hours, even if it's on deadline day. If the negotiations aren't happening right now, or at least interest, the club isn't notifying players that there is interest right now, and we don't know anything, obviously, then yeah, I guess it would be kind of hard to say that they're going to go in January, but I don't know what I'm talking about with the transfer window. So I don't want any fans to kind of take this as me thinking I know anything about transfers, because I really don't.
I think the positive compared to this time last week is we were coming off a weekend where there was a tremendous amount of noise around certain players, and what they were doing and what they weren't doing. We haven't had that this past 7 days, which I think is a positive, really, because either it's gone proper secret squirrel, or people are just losing interest in trying to sign our players if there was interest anyway. So I think the fact we're sat here on the 20th, 21st of January, 20th, everyone is still there at the moment. I think it's not job done because it won't be until the window is shut, given how a lot of fans thought this month would go off the pitch. I think that's a pretty good result so far.
I agree with you. I still wouldn't be surprised if we lose one. But at this point,
I'd be gobsmacked if we don't.
I agree with that. But I at this point, I think losing 2 or 3, maybe we lose 2, but losing more than that at this point looks a little bit unlikely.
Well, that just about wraps up episode 404. Lots to think about there. Mainly pies and people
Mainly
using
pie.
their legs.
Don't think about the loss. Think about the pies and the fatberg. Den's cheesy, oniony smell.
It's fatberg. Think about all the laughs we've shared in the last 50-something minutes.
Think about how much we didn't want to talk about football.
Exactly. Just respect that and join us for episode 405 when we'll be talking about a positive result against Leyton Orient at not Brisbane Road next week.
Nice. Good message.
I'm off to watch John Wick 2 now. I've got the bug.
All right. Nice. There you go.
It's like a mini series for me. What streaming service is it on? Let's have a look. John Wick.
I don't know the UK streaming services, so you're asking the wrong man. Sure, but I'm glad that you've got.
I think it's on Amazon Prime.
In these long weeks in January, where we don't have midweek games, you need something else to bide you over. So
exactly.
Glad you found Keanu.
Although we are at home to Valencia tomorrow night, would you believe?
Well, remember when this was meant to be a nice fixture with Ruben and everything? Yeah,
he's ruined it for everybody.
He's ruined it for everyone.
Yeah, smashed it to the ground.
It will still be.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well,
if you go into that wrap up warm, if you go into the Orient wrap up extra warm, it's quite a long way. Have a good week. Thanks for joining us, Ross. Look after yourself, and
you as well.
We will see you probably next Monday. I guess we're back into this Monday to Monday routine, which is working all right. I say that we've done it twice. We've done it twice this year. So we'll see what happens, but we'll be back early next week anyway to talk about the game against Leyton Orient. So we'll see you soon. Have a good week, and come on you Ars.